All right, so today is a video I'm actually pretty excited about, and I'm actually really loving how big my hair is today for reasons that are beyond me, but I'm just going with it. I originally filmed this at my desk. I was doing a screen share of Goodreads. I was looking at underhyped books, and I was defining that as books with less than 2,000 ratings on Goodreads that I have read, that I love, that deserve more hype. And then I realized 20 of those books I own, which is huge. I don't own a lot of books in the grand scheme of things. I have these two bookshelves. They're 3-tier bookshelves. I have a little that I put on top, but with the kittens, I don't do that as much anymore. And I have like a box of books in the closet. So it's not a bunch of books that I keep because I used to live in apartments. I'm going to get more books. I have large plans for when I have saved money for how I want to arrange one of the rooms in the house to like facilitate a home library situation. Maybe not for filming, but just for myself. It's always been a dream, like probably most book nerds. Regardless, if right now, early 2024, it's in my collection, that's because I really appreciated it, loved it, found value in it, and I wanted to scream about them to you guys. That's what I want to do. I have 20 books here. It's also kind of two birds, one stone situation. I always struggle with the type of content I want to do in February because I want to highlight Black authors because they are some of my favorite authors, just like period. And you all actually will see that in this scenario. I did not curate this stack of books to be by any ethnicity of author in particular, but by happenstance, probably systemic racism in publishing and things like that. 15 of these 20 works are written by authors of color, and the majority of those are written by Black authors. So we're two birds, one stoning here. This is a recommendation video for that, but also these are underhyped books that I love that I think people should be reading for one reason or another, and I am just like, just very about it. And so yeah, I'm just gonna wave my books at you, tell you why I think you should read them, and maybe you'll find a new book to try out on this list. And I was going to do it in some sort of order, but the stack is just around me. It's just around me. We're just gonna go through it. And there is everything from short story collections, novellas, novels, series, it's all here. All the genres I think are represented. Maybe not literary, because I don't own as many literary, and literary typically does better with numbers than speculative, because that's just how Goodreads is. So let's start with this stack over here that has some of my recent reads that have less than 2,000 ratings. The first one I think this is not egregious. This is the Jackp Wives by T. Kingfisher. So in the T. Kingfisher fandom, we're doing great. T. Kingfisher's doing fine. Many people are reading her books. She's more popular than she's ever been. I love her. This is her first short story collection, and short story collections just don't do well on Goodreads. People don't read them. But I think if you like T. Kingfisher, you should read this because she's a master at short stories, in my opinion, as someone who reads many short stories, and it's just such fun bite-sized versions of the things she does well. Fairy tale retellings, dark, unsettling horror, grandma type characters who have gardens that they love. All of that's in here. And on the flip side, if you're like, I don't know if I like T. Kingfisher, well, if you want a taste of everything she's been focusing on in her published works, here you go. So in general, I do think more people should be reading this, especially in the Kingfisher fandom, but Kingfisher's doing fine. Like, she is not being underhyped. She is hyped, I think, appropriately. An author I struggle to recommend, but I think she does fascinating work, is Jennifer Marie Brissett. And she had 2 works that I had read on the list, but this is the one I own. The other one is Destroyer of Light. This was released by Tor a couple years ago. I like this one more. This is 200 pages and less than 2,000 ratings, and this is a very interesting book. And I talked about it recently on the channel, but in case you're seeing this far in the future, we have a story that's obviously being told in some sort of coding simulation scenario, and every so often there's this weird pause break, and we're with the same characters but a different setup and sometimes different genders and different relationships to each other. And we're slowly figuring out what is the story being told. And there are 2 stories. There's the story of this this person who goes by Adrian most of the time, who is losing their loved one, and the grief that comes with that. But then the second story is what has happened to this dystopian world and how did they get there, and the different ways that dystopian-ish is being portrayed. It's very complicated, but I really liked it, and I think for 200 pages, it's like the perfect amount of time to be in this kind of complex, convoluted situation. Like, it's not a favorite of all time for me, but like, I rarely get to read things that are this weird and also satisfying. The other book is longer, and I think that's where I struggle with her writing style in particular. The world building still so cool, still so different than what I've ever read, but it's a bit longer. And both of them are retellings of like historical legends. So that seems to be her bag. I would read more by her. Definitely underhyped, but also hard for me to like figure out the right hands to put this book into. Oh, a book that I tend to kind of be like, if you're patient enough for this book, you're definitely patient enough for Elysium. And that is Goliath by Tochi Onyebuchi. I love this book. Oh my gosh, do I think it needs more acclaim. I never tab books. Look at all these tabs. Look at them. I've read this book twice. I read this book twice in 1 month because I was just like blown away by what I just read and I needed to recontextualize it. This is a book that requires patience from the reader. If you do not have patience, if you do not want the indulgently confusing narrative framework, this book's not going to be for you. But if you do have it, this is a very rewarding experience. It is science fiction doing a lot of what I appreciate science fiction doing, which is looking at themes of today and contextualizing them in the near future. This is about, we have messed up Earth. People go away to the satellites. Earth is becoming habitable again, so people are returning. But there were people left behind, and these people left behind are usually the quote-unquote undesirable people, and they have been surviving, rebuilding, and now are being displaced. So it's that version of gentrification, but it's told in a way where you're just really in this jarring, fragmented scope with these characters. And I fell in love with them. I fell in love with the storytell. It's harrowing, it's heartbreaking, and I think I hope it stands the test of time. I think this is what science fiction at its best does, but I recognize it's a hard book to read. It's not easy, okay? Right, in this stack over here, let's talk about series that I love, and these series deserve more, because obviously they were on this list. Okay, so let's start with, no surprise to anyone, some Karen Lord. Thankfully, The Best of All Possible Worlds was not on that list, but the other two in the series were, so, The Galaxy Game, and The Blue Beautiful World. I still need to get my final copy of The Blue Beautiful World. This is an arc. So I'm just gonna put an image of The Best of All Possible Worlds here, but we're talking about that series in general, and I do have a should you read for that series. This is such good social-based cultural space opera. It has a lot of tropes that we associate when we read, when we watch Star Trek. If you like Becky Chambers, there's a lot of that focus on different cultures and nations and how they intersect. But all three of these books in the series are different genres of science fiction, I would say. The first one is definitely more of an episodic kind of like slow burn love story. It's very much like a season of television where you're rooting for the main two characters to get together, but there's also adventures in each chapter, and along the way you're learning about this world, and it's so fascinating. And it's so cool seeing a government system respond the way they do to the refugees in that world. So it's a great imagination of what a world could look like, just like we do with Star Trek, but in a book. The Galaxy Game is right at this pivotal turning point in the universe, and we follow a character we're introduced to in the first book maneuver his own coming of age, his own traumas, in tandem with the world coming to terms with its traumas. And it's really jarring, but I think very well accomplished, rereadable to the extreme. I really enjoyed it on reread. And then the third book, Blue Beautiful World, follows a character, again, that we've been following in the series, like 30 years in the future, and this is where we finally are like, okay, we've been on these other planets, we have had humans, and then we've had humanoid-like creatures, and now we're gonna go to Earth, and let's see how this handles, like, this first contact with aliens happens with Earth. I really like the series, the thought experiment. I have an interview with Karen Lord as well, and she is phenomenal, such a great thinker. So yeah, do I think those books deserve more hype? Always, absolutely. Now into the other series, yes. These two are not like extremely egregious, or I guess these three aren't, but one of them bothers me a little bit more maybe. So we'll start with that. And that is Labyrinth Heart. This is close to 2000. This is like 1700, I think, when I was looking. But like, guys, we need to be reading the Rook and the Rose trilogy, okay? The Rook and the Rose trilogy is so good. Most of the time when I have figured out the right person to recommend it to, they love it. It's a new favorite of all time. I do have a should you read for this series. I have an author interview with these authors because it's so fun, so good. It is also really focused on the cultural problems it's introduced in the first book. It doesn't get distracted by magic. Although, the magic is still very cool. So it's not like we still don't have magic. It's just that it doesn't get distracted by it. And I love the whole series. It sticks the landing. All the books are like the same size, so you don't have this issue of like, oh, the books just keep getting bigger. No, they're all about this size, and they're actually only this big because it has like actual like good thick paper with nice big font. It's a big floppy boy, at least in the United States. Obviously, I can't speak for the UK versions, which I assume are a little shorter. But yeah, this one was the only one that was less than 2,000. But in general, I always want this series to have more ratings. Also, very close to the 2000 mark was The Faithless by C.L. Clarke. I'm actually kind of impressed that this one's doing pretty well because I feel like The Unbroken wasn't super well received in terms of the sapphic trifecta. So this one came out early last year. So it's been out for about a year now and it has almost 2,000 ratings, but it needs more. It needs more. And the third book will be coming out soonish, maybe within a year or two. And it's just such a messy good time. It's inspired by Northern African history, French occupation of Algeria, I believe. And it's so messy. And I think this one is going to continue focusing on the human parts that we've been teasing this entire time, which I really like. I love The Unbroken and The Faithless. I didn't think I would because it is more low magic. It did have more military focus, but gosh, Turenne and Luca, they are a mess. And I mean, Turenne in particular is my favorite. Luca, I love to be conflicted with my feelings about Luca. It's one of my favorite things. Another one that is just at the door of 2000, Speaking Bones by Ken Liu. And The Veiled Throne was also barely had 2000. So this just tells me more people need to read the Dandelion Dynasty, which more people are reading it. Like I know if you're in my circle of booktube, you're like, people are reading the Dandelion Dynasty. Angela, what are you talking about? People are, but people aren't. Like if you go to a bookstore, you'll be lucky if you find The Grace of Kings on the shelf. And it's, I mean, I'm going to keep saying everything's so good because that's the whole point of this recommendation video. I love all these books because they're on my shelf. I didn't even read the physical versions of this. I just bought them so I can stare at them and be happy. But the Dandelion Dynasty, the idea of looking at a world transitioning from its medieval to Renaissance era is spectacular. I have a should you read for the series. I have an author interview with Ken Liu, which we also talk about short stories. I do clearly mark spoiler and spoiler-free moments in that interview. He is beyond fun to interview, like truly. But Dandelion Dynasty, if you like an author who really likes thinking through a thought experiment, you gotta try it out. You gotta try it out. I would read the first two books, and I think you'll have a pretty good sense within that portion, actually within 300 pages of the second book, if it's for you. I'm not even gonna say you have to finish Wall of Storms to know, because I think the first two books are tonally fairly different. But if by the first part of Wall of Storms you're not feeling it, I don't think you're gonna be feeling it, which is okay. But it's so cool reading a series where the author got to do exactly what he wanted to do. Whether that resonates with you or not is a completely different story. That's a different question, answer. But he got to do what he wanted to do, and I think it comes together incredibly well. And then the last series that these are like favorite series of all time for me. Rook and the Rose, Dandelion Dynasty, and then we've got Chorus of Dragons. Guys, what are we doing? What are we doing? I mean, I know a lot of you have read these books, so this isn't really me screaming at you guys. It's screaming into the void. Because this series is so fun. Oh, it's so fun. You want bombastic, confusing, you meet a dragon within the first 100 pages fantasy? Chorus of Dragons. It does not hide the dragons. And it's confusing, but you get to love these messy characters, and there are silly, sassy footnotes. The audiobooks are spectacularly done. Most of them have 2 to 3 narrators, and I love all of them. Some of my favorite audio narrators are doing this series. It's representation of gender, it's world building, the way it's playing with common tropes we've always seen in fantasy and turning some of them on its head. It's so fun. It's a fun time, and I think about rereading this pretty much weekly because everyone is always picking it up in the Discord, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. I named my new kitten after the main character of this series. Kieran is named after Kieran in this series, okay? That's how much I love it. Deserves more love. Deserves more love. All right, let's pivot. Let's see, what else we got in my I have so many more in my stacks. Okay, well, these two are books that I'm sad that I saw on the list, but they are not necessarily favorites of mine, but I still have them because they're very pretty books. One is The Surviving Sky. The second book does come out next year, and it's generally, I think, being received approximately the same by most people who read it, that it's like a pretty good sci-fantasy book. It does focus on the trials of a married couple. So if that's something you want to focus on, because we don't get that a lot in adult fantasy for some reason, that's done well here. We have a marriage that is struggling. We have a world that has like their haves and have-not are people who can use this architecture, plant magic, and those who can't. And then we have this world that is basically always in tumult, and things are getting worse on their surviving little island in the sky and figuring out that mystery of why are things getting worse. It's not a bad story. I might have liked it more if I wasn't reading it in one of the most stressful periods of my life, but at the same time, I think it was a little more mystery and plot-driven than I was looking for. And then the other one is Masters of Poisons. And I do get surprised that this book doesn't get more love that I think it likes, but mainly because in my head reading it, it feels a lot like classic fantasy. It's just classic fantasy that feels like, you know, it's written with African inspiration. So I don't know why it doesn't land for the same group of people that love classic fantasy. I mean, obviously I'm not like the person who likes classic fantasy, so maybe that's also just like the problem. This is the one I like the most of all of those things. It's questy. It has a kind of remove from the characters that you get with very classic fantasy, where you don't get to be like in their head. There are kind of some time jumps. At its core, this is looking at a world where it doesn't have a sustainable climate. Things are spiraling out of control, and one of our main characters is trying to find a thing to fix it. And the other one is kind of having a relationship with this new magic, and that's the main character you see on the cover. And their lives intersect, and they're trying to like find a new status quo in the world that is more sustainable. It's a standalone. I really liked it. I didn't love it, but I do like how it looks, so I kind of keep it around. I didn't spend that much money on it. I think I spent like $8 on it because it was like used, which was like pristine used condition. And I do want to read more by her because I think she has a really nice prose style, which is also why I get surprised by people who like really focus on prose style. Don't seem to like this one either. I don't really know. I feel like there is an audience for this author. I just don't know where it is. And then over here, I have my last stack of books. I think I have a couple short story things. So let's discuss those next. Like I said, there's really no rhyme or reason here. I just have a bunch of books that are on my shelf that I really like. Okay, first one's Terraformer. I really think people who are trying to get into short stories should pick this up. Because I think when people think of short stories, they're thinking something you can read in 10 minutes. These are stories that you can read in 10 minutes. That's what this collection is. A short story is not always something you can read in 10 minutes. Sometimes it takes 20 or 30 minutes, and that feels a little long. These are not flash fiction, but they are very short, and they pack a punch. And you get a wide range of authors in here, so if you like some of them, you can go find other authors. So I think this is a very valuable anthology. It actually pulls a lot from the website that this used to have, where they would have weekly, I think, releases. There are new stories in here, like a handful, like 6 or 8. I loved buddy reading this with my friends. Like I said, I think this is a great introductory anthology for people looking to get into science fiction short stories because they pack a punch, they're short, they don't take up too much of your time. These next two hurt me. These are my favorite anthologies of all time, okay? And that is New Suns 1 and New Suns 2. I think I like New Suns 2 slightly more, and I think the cover's slightly prettier, so I'm gonna hold this one up. I mean, they're stunning covers, both of them. Like, and they both have this wraparound quality. So fun. It's the same here. These have like my favorite short stories and the anthologies of all time. So anthologies for me, I can struggle because they'll be too long. Like I would argue that if this one didn't have short stories, it would be too long for me. Because a lot of anthologies that are this big have actually more of those short stories that are like 30 or 40 minutes per story. And these ones have more of those varying from 10-minute short stories to 30 to 40-minute short stories sort of thing. But they're short. I think both of these collections are like at most 300 pages. And that's like the sweet spot for me and an anthology length. But also, I just love the stories. The curation that is done by Nisi Shaw on these collections is phenomenal for me and my tastes. So if you know we have short story overlap, you gotta get these. These are phenomenal. So those are the short stories, because like I said, there were so many short story collections and anthologies, but these are the ones I own because I really like them. And now we got the stack of the underratedness. We'll do novellas, and then we'll do 4 books that I always yell about and get sad that no one thinks about them. First is And What Can We Offer You Tonight by Premi Mohammed. I was surprised by this. This won the Nebula. So I was shocked that more people haven't picked this up. This is almost a short story, if I'm being honest, because it's like 75 pages. So it's very short. It's got some interesting zombie, gothic, future dystopian vibes. I would try it out. And then this one just won the Ursula K. Le Guin Award in Fiction, Arboreality. This is the climate science fiction of the moment. Like, truly more people should read this. It's really short. It's got like short story vignette qualities, and it's about surviving climate crises, but it's also about living in a climate crisis. And I think those are distinct things, and I think we need more stories like that. It doesn't steer clear of these heavy topics, but it also doesn't make you, it's not so fatalistic and depressing. I think for me right now in our world, where I'm reminded that winter is not wintering in the normal ways, things like this are important. It takes place in Vancouver Island. It's a Canadian small press book. Yeah, it's like Styloform Press or something. I really recommend it. Also, the cover is so pretty. It's so pretty. So I'm not really surprised that this one doesn't have that many ratings, but it deserves more. And then this at least has a few more ratings than the last time I talked about it, but still not enough. Each of Us a Desert. This is one of like a handful of young adult novels I have on my shelves because it is that good, okay? Each of Us a Desert is so good. We follow Xochi. She is this person who's supposed to take everyone's shame, essentially, and give it back to the earth, because if they don't, there will be these monsters that come out and attack people. So if she doesn't do her job, that bad things will happen to her village, but doing her job is this huge weight on her. She's a 14-year-old girl. She just wants to live. So one day she leaves home, and it's about her journey. And it's this dystopian fantasy future landscape. You're learning about what we do know, what we don't know. There's confrontation with her views. She meets people she learns to trust. Oh, it is so good. And then there's also like really nice little touches of art in it. The audiobook is phenomenal. It is touching. I want to read this all the time. But I love this book. It came out in 2020. I think it was done dirty by that. And it's also like, I don't know how people find this book in terms of like, it's for them, because it's not fast paced, which I feel like there's a certain pacing or act structure we expect from young adult works. Maybe we're more forgiving of that in contemporary young adult, but this is like fantasy young adult, but it's also not traditional fantasy. It's like I said, dystopian fantasy future. I don't know. It's sapphic. It's amazing. I love it. And then we're just gonna yell about why don't people like Nicky Drayden? Why? I should have just taken The Prey of Gods off my shelf too, because I now own all four. But these are the ones that technically had less than 2,000. The Escaping Exodus duology and Temper. I have an author spotlight for Nicky Drayden because I love her and I want more books by her because she has such a fun imagination. It is dark, it is wacky, it is engaging, they are easy to read. This book, I read in a day. I read this in a day. I don't read books this long in a day. That's not who I am. I read this on my birthday when I turned 30? Question mark. This is interesting because I think at first you'd think this is young adult because it has a lot of young adult tropes. It's dystopian. People are twins and one twin has a certain number of virtues and the other one has a certain number of vices. So one's like the bad twin and one's the good one, but they need to be close to each other. So you got that type of weird system. But then there's this horror element and there's kind of a possession story and it totally gets really weird. I love Nicky Drayden works because they are weird, but they are easy to like fall into and the ride is always wild, okay? I'm sure you can nitpick things. I'm sure they're not perfect, but I have a blast. I have such a good time. Same thing with Escaping Exodus and Symbiosis. This is we're in space, we're living on these space whales, so we are parasites, so there are discussions about that. There's a matriarchy and there's discussions about the flaws and the pros in this matriarchy system and the way that there are these polyamorous families. The world building is so interesting, and then we follow two characters, I think from different classes in the system and their struggles, because I think they're also kind of like elder teens, early young adults. And it's just easy to follow. And this one follows one of the main characters from the first book and then a different main character. And the fallout of the first book kind of goes here. So it's like a duology, right? So I can't really tell you about this, but I love Nicky Drayden. Why aren't more people reading Nicky Drayden? Why? Look at these covers. They're so fun. What don't you want to know what's happening here? Why is she so broody? Huh? Look at this moon. This is a great winter read. It is very cold. It is haunting. It has got some nice horror. And yeah, that's just how I feel. More people need to read Nicky Drayden. That's how I feel pretty much always. Anyways, that's this video. These are 20 books that I saw that had less than 2,000 ratings that I own, and you should maybe try one of them if you haven't already. Or, convince your friend to read one of them. We need to get these books out there because they are so good. Like, so good. So good. Anyways, if you want to just leave an emoji, so let me know you're here. Leave a moon for Temper. That's what I've decided. That's not Temper. This is Temper, right here. I think this is the least read of the Nicky Draydens, maybe. Actually, no. I think technically that was Symbiosis. Unsure. I don't have the numbers in front of me anymore. But otherwise, let me know what you think is a critically underhyped book. You can use my number metrics on Goodreads, or you can use your own metrics. That's fine. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.